Hi viewers, welcome to Green Treasure. The video tutorial is about introduction of photosynthesis. It will cover various aspects of photosynthesis including site or seat of photosynthesis and its significance, and also will discuss photosynthesis in light of Quranic verses. Before we go through the photosynthesis, we have to understand the historical aspect or the review of the literature. But the review of literature will be dealt separately in the separate video. With discoveries over time, the concept of photosynthesis has evolved. Many scientists, scholars, and philosophers they have immensely contributed, which have led to the understanding of the concept of photosynthesis. Some of them, which include Josh Priestley, John Ingenhousz, Thomas Engelmann, Warburg, Von Neil, Emerson and Arnold, Robert Hill, Melvin Calvin and Benson, and Jaginderov and others. But you see, despite this, that photosynthesis concept has been understood, but yet some steps are not fully understood. Equation of photosynthesis is known since 19th century, where we see 6 times carbon dioxide, 12 times water, in presence of light, in presence of pigments. It releases the products as glucose and oxygen as a byproduct. So in presence of light and in presence of the pigments, which is the green trees, we get the organic matter and also oxygen as a byproduct. So let us go through the introduction about photosynthesis, because it's the most important anabolic pathway on earth. By anabolic process, it means it's one which synthesizes complex molecules from simpler ones using input of energy. So here you will see from simpler molecules which are inorganic in nature, like carbon dioxide and water, you are getting the organic matter and using solar energy as an energy input. Since energy input is used here, it's an anaeronic process, because photosynthesis builds glucose from carbon dioxide and water using light energy. So it requires input of external energy and supply. That's why in photosynthesis you will see the products have higher free energy than the reactants. So it is unique among autotrophs. Literally, photosynthesis means synthesis using light. So one simplest definition can be photosynthesis can be defined as a synthesis of organic compound glucose from simple inorganic ones like carbon dioxide, water in presence of chlorophyll, and photosynthetically active radiations liberating oxygen as a byproduct. So this is a very simple definition, where inorganic compounds like carbon dioxide and water in presence of chlorophyll and photosynthetically active radiation is liberating oxygen as a byproduct. We can also define it in this way also. Photosynthesis is the photochemical process by which photoautotropic organisms convert light energy into chemical energy, because it is an energy conversion process, synthesizing organic compounds from carbon dioxide and water, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. Or else we can define photosynthesis is nature's fundamental mechanism of solar energy transduction, getting one form of energy converted into another form of the energy, wherein light quanta drive the anaeronic synthesis of glucose from inorganic precursors, sustaining nearly all life on earth. So these are the two definitions. After understanding the definition of the photosynthesis, let us discuss the various aspects of photosynthesis. In brief, is the only biological process on the earth which harvests solar energy and converts it into chemical energy of organic food. And organic food which is formed is sufficient for next trophic level, that is the heterotroph. So photosynthesis is their first energy conversion process, because it converts one form of energy, which is electromagnetic radiations, photosynthetically electromagnetic radiations, converting it into chemical energy of organic food. And how much? 0.3% only. And also it is called as the carbon assimilation process, because here you will see carbon dioxide is converted into carbohydrates, or inorganic carbon is reduced into organic state, carbon dioxide to carbohydrate. We call it as a carbon assimilation process also. It is a biological transduction process because it converts light energy into chemical energy that is stored in glucose. And because of this link, plants act as transducers. They are converting energy from one form to another form. That is, the chemical light energy is converted into chemical energy. Before we go through the process of the photosynthesis, it is very important to understand the site or the seat of the photosynthesis, which organ, where it's located, what are the components, and where the photosynthesis fits actually. So before we go through photosynthesis, we have to understand the chloroplast. So as we are discussing the higher plants here, the leaf, which is here having a dorsiventral symmetry, that is the upper epidermis and the lower epidermis, and the thickness of the leaf is made up of mesophyll cells. And leaf, as you know, has a xylem and a phloem as a conducting system. So if you take a cross section of it, you will see it is the upper epidermis of the leaf, this is the lower epidermis of the leaf, and then in between the two epidermises there is also present mesophyll cells, which are of two types, palisade parenchyma and loosely arranged spongy parenchyma cells. And on the lower side you will see mostly there are present the stomata also for regulations. And these cells, which are mesophyll cells, are normal cells. They, in addition to the cellular organelles, these cells have a chloroplast. So that means they are just like eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells. They have a nucleus. They have eukaryotic cells, and then they have nucleus. They have chloroplast, ribosomes, and everything, and vacuole. But here we have to discuss out of this mesophyll cell the structure of the chloroplast, where actually the photosynthesis is taking place. Now you will see the photosynthesis is taking place within these chloroplast structure. This is basically a green plastic, and these green plastids which are located in these cells on their wall, they are basically tiny factories which are synthesizing organic food. We can say that these tiny factories, they sustain actually life on the planet Earth. But we have to understand structure of the chloroplast. You'll see as per the diversity, it has a diversity in shape, diversity in size, and the numbers also. But their shape, usually they are disc. They can be biconvex lens shape, and in higher plants they can be 4 to 10 millimicrons in dia and 1 to 3 millimicrons in thick. And now you see as an organelle, it is a double membrane enveloped organ, and each membrane has a unit membrane character as a biology student, and it has an outer membrane and an inner membrane, and in between the two membranes there is a space, and that space is called as the periplastidal space, plastidal space, that is 100 to 200 angstrom units. And now outer membrane and then the inner membrane. Outer membrane is permeable. It has a permeability barrier. A outer membrane is basically permeable to small molecules, and that membrane has also proteinaceous aqueous channels. But now when the inner membrane is concerned, that has a permeability barrier, and it regulates through transporters. Now we'll have to see the central part of this. Central part of the chloroplast is proteinaceous. That portion is called as the stroma, or it is a fluid matrix. It is it is colorless. It has a colloidal, uh, it's colloidal in nature with 50 to 60% proteins, 25 to 30% of lipids, and it has a circular DNA. It has ribosome 70S. It has vitamins, minerals, and different enzymes. In addition to so cytoma is the cavity where these things are present. In addition to this, the cytoma accommodates a colored lamellar system. Cytoma in itself is colorless, but it accommodates these colored structures, green structures, which are piles of discs, and these each, which are just like the coins, each coin is called as a thylakoid, and when together that is called as the granum. And this structure is a colored lamellar system. So sometimes one grana is connected with the another grana by means of a membrane which is called as the stroma lamellae. Now let us discuss in detail. So first of all, we have seen here a leaf. A leaf has within it a mesophyll cells. Within the mesophyll cells, we have chloroplasts, and we are discussing the structure of the chloroplast, which has an outer membrane, inner membrane, and then there is a space, stroma, which is colorless, accommodating the different components of this cell, like as the stroma, which is colorless. It accommodates the colored portion, which is called as the colored lamellar system. Now let us understand the structure of the chloroplast in detail now. So we have seen that it has an outer membrane, it has an inner membrane, and then between them is a space that is called as the intermembrane space. Then is the stroma, which is an aqueous fluid, and within there are present the thylakoid. And each thylakoid, we'll see, is a membrane bound structure, a coin which is a folding of a membrane. So we have seen here as a section of it. This one coin is in a section. You will see it is made up of folding of a membrane, a unit membrane. And then this is second coin, where you will see the membrane bound structure, and these membrane bound structures, one is called as thylakoid, and overall when they are stacked together they are named as the granum. Now you will see each has a membrane which is a unit membrane, and then there is a central space in each thylakoid that is called as the lumen. So each thylakoid is basically a membrane bound structure having central space named as lumen, or that is also named as the intrathylakoid space. Now we have a membrane, unit membrane character, where you have an outer protein, inner protein, and then there is a lipid bilayer. Now the thylakoid membrane bears number of integral proteins and photosynthetic pigments. Now the pigments are present within these membranes, which are thylakoid membranes. And these the photosynthetic pigments, which includes chlorophylls, carotenoids, and in some case phycobilanes, and they also have the pigment systems within them. We will elaborate it in other videos also. Here I want to give you an idea where the pigments are lying. Actually, pigments are lying in the membranes of these thylakoids. So that is why it is a colored lamellar system. So what is the role of these pigments? The role of these pigments is basically it's a light capturing and ATP generating system. Reactions are taking place there. We call it as a photochemical phase that is taking place. The light harvesting is taking place within these thylakoids, and then you will see on this there are present electron transport carriers which are located on the outer surface, and within these are present the electron transport carriers which are responsible for reactions of photophosphorylations. Here is the one more modified version. It's the structure in detail about the chloroplast. I have reprinted it by permission from the Bruce Alberts in my book Plant Physiology and Metabolism. And you will see here similarly the anatomy of the leaf, and these are the mesophyll cells, and it has shown one structure of the chloroplast, and these are the interlamellar system, the lamellar system which is well within the chloroplast, and where this is stroma, these are the granum, and then there are thylakoid membranes, and there is an outer membrane and inner membrane, and then between them is a space also. In addition to this, you will find here that structure granum, where this is the space which is called as the thylakoid space, and these are the one thylakoid, another, and then this is the granum together. Now I would like to give you one thing more here, that is called as the stacking. This space, the internal space, has some of the mobile components of electron transport system also, and you will see there is a stacking, and sometimes there is an unstacking of the thylakoids. The stacking and unstacking of thylakoids occurs due to their surface charges. What are the charges in their surface? That is, here the surface charges matters. See, if this is a stacked region, this stacked region, grana lamellae, have little charges. We have little charges here. When there is a little charges, there will be little electrostatic repulsion between the two surfaces. And when a situation arises there, there will be vulnerable forces. They will hold them together. That is why when there are less charges, there will be less electrostatic repulsions, and vulnerable forces will act there, and it will be a stacked structure. Whereas contrast to unstacked region, that is having more charges, that time there will be more charges, and when there will be more charges between the membranes, and the membranes will repel, and vulnerable forces will not act there, and that will remain unstacked. So it is again we are trying to understand, because we have to understand the process, because everything is taking place within these structures, and you will see the different phases of the photosynthesis are taking place there. So is a organelles there which has such a structure where both the phases, which can be a light phase and the dark phase, is taking place within the chloroplasts, and that's why we call them as tiny factories. Now briefly let us understand the 4 stages of photosynthesis. Basically, when we see the mechanism, there is a light reaction and a dark reaction. First of all, in the light reaction, there will be an absorption of light. And second will be electron transport mediated reduction of NADP. And third will be the synthesis of ATP. And then the fourth will be the reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates. These are the four phases of the photosynthesis, but broadly speaking, we can put them as the mechanism of photosynthesis into 2 phases. One, this will be the light phase, and this will be the dark phase. So these phases, each occurring in defined area of the chloroplast. Now we have understood the structure of the chloroplast. We have a stroma, which is a colorless portion having different enzymes, having different minerals, vitamins, and then we have a lamellar portion, which is the granum, where we have a pigmentus. So this phase will be taking place in the pigment area, that is the membranes of thylakoid, and this phase will be taking place within the stroma of the chloroplast. So all the 4 stages are synchronized because they are dependent each other. Reactions of stage 1 to 3 are catalyzed within the thylakoid membrane. As I said, light phase is taking place, within the membrane of the thylakoid. And the fourth one, which is reduction of carbon dioxide into carbohydrates, is taking place or is completed within the stroma of the chloroplast. Now, with the help of one diagram, which will be a generalized diagram, I would like to give you a brief idea that how this process fits within the chloroplast so that it will facilitate you for further studies. Now, this is the generalized diagram. This generalized diagram is a structure of a chloroplast. This is the chloroplast, and this green area are the granum, where you find the stacks of coins, thylakoids, and each coin has a membrane. As I said, each membrane has the pigments and the pigment systems located within them. And this chloroplast is located within the mesophyll cells of the leaf. And then this whole is the stroma. Now, what are the reactions? The first thing is light energy. That is photosynthetically active radiations. Not all. Photosynthetically active radiations. They are to be absorbed. They are to be trapped. That will result in the chlorophyll excitations. So pigment excitation will be due to the light which is being trapped within these membranes. And here is a role of water. The water will be oxidized. That is called as the photolysis of water, the breakdown of water in presence of light within the thylakoid membranes. That will result in generation of proton, in release of oxygen, and in release of the electrons. So the photon is being trapped, which results in the excitation, and this phase, whole phase, including the photolysis of water, releasing oxygen as a byproduct, is taking place within the granum. This phase is called as the photochemical phase. Understand? This is the photochemical phase. But what will be the outcome of it? One is the oxygen, which is given as a byproduct. Other is the electrons and the protons, and also there will be reduction of NADP and ADP into ATP and NADPH plus H. So that means assimilatory power will be also produced by these reactions. So photochemical reactions are resulting in the generation of an assimilatory power, that is ATP and NADPH plus H positive. So this is being given to the stroma from these thylakoids or from granum. Now within these thylakoid, within these stroma of the chloroplast, a set of reactions are taking place there, which is being energized by this assimilatory power, where a carbon dioxide which has been diffused into the leaf is being reduced through this cell cycle, which is called as Calvin cycle. Overall, they are named as the dark phase because they can take place in the night in presence of this assimilatory power, and the result will be the glucose. So the carbon dioxide will be reduced to glucose, and that carbon dioxide glucose can be reduced into starch, and which will remain within the stroma of the chloroplast. That is why we call these plastids as a tiny factories which are responsible for the production of the starch. So we have seen that how a mechanism is taking place here. A light reaction in presence of these lamellar system, in presence of the pigments within it, and in presence of the water releasing byproduct as an oxygen, and also responsible for generation of an reduced power, assimilatory power, and energy ATP, which is used for a reduction of carbon dioxide, which is reduced to glucose, and then that glucose is reduced to starch. So I hope you understand. Keep this thing in mind, that light phase will be taking place here and the dark phase will be taking place, and the overall these reactions, the four reactions are synchronized, and the net product is the formation of a glucose, and organic compounds, and which is the basic thing out of the photosynthesis. I hope you have understood this cycle. Now let us understand significance of photosynthesis. Significance of photosynthesis is a unique manufacturing process among autotrophs because they have a pigment system. And you have understood that organic food is synthesized from inorganic raw material, that is carbon dioxide and water. Also, we have seen it sustains almost all life on the earth because the primary producing process. And the principal end products are leaf starch and disaccharides as sucrose. Leaf starch is synthesized and stored in the chloroplast, and sucrose, that is glucose plus fructose, is synthesized in the cytosol. And it is the most efficient energy trapping and transforming process as we have understood it. Then the only natural process by which oxygen is liberated. Also, because of this process, it maintains the oxygen and the carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere. And it also minimizes the impact of greenhouse effect because it is taking the carbon dioxide and reducing it into carbohydrates. Due to this process, oceans and forests acts as a carbon dioxide sinks because they are reducing it to carbohydrates. That's why they are minimizing the greenhouse effect. And it provides useful natural products like food, timber, fiber, oils, gum, resin, and drugs. And you also know that fossil fuels like coal, petroleum, natural gases, etc. are compressed and processed products of the photosynthesis. Because you see, the present food as well as the fossil fuel is because of the primary process. That process is the energy conversion process, energy transduction process, which is called as the photosynthesis. Now, I would like to conclude it with Quranic verses, which is Surah Yasin, where you will see that Allazi jahla lakum min ash-shajaril akhdari naran faida antum minahu taqidun. Now, what Allah Jalla Shanu says, He, Allah, has produced for you fire out of the green trees from which you ignite. Now let us understand this verse. Here is mentioned al-akhdar, shajar al-akhdari means green tree. What green tree means now to a biology student? It points directly to the photosynthetic apparatus because you have seen chlorophylls are there, and also you have seen that the plant release oxygen as a byproduct, very important for combustion process. To ignite a combustion process, you require an oxygen. That's also given by the plants. And now combustion occurs by the combination of oxygen with carbon in burning substance. At the same time, the raw material which is being provided, whether it is a fossil fuel, it is a carbohydrate, they provide the basic element which serves as second ingredient for all combustion processes. So the fire you ignite arises from green trees. So because of the photosynthesis transduces light energy into chemical energy stored in carbohydrate. That can be a wood, that can be a glucose, that can be the wood is essentially solar energy locked into carbon bonds by photosynthesis. Upon burning wood, because burning also requires the oxygen, burning wood, stored sunlight is released as heat and light. So literally fire from green tree. And the verse describes full energy cycle centuries before biochemistry. That is, solar photons are captured by green plants, stored and later released as fire that humans ignite and use. You will see this verse explains that green vegetation is a medium for storing and releasing energy. Green vegetation is a medium for storing and releasing energy, and now we call as a photosynthesis and bioenergy. That is the meaning of this Quranic verse. Hope you have understood different aspects of photosynthesis in plain terms. And if you liked the video, hit the like button and subscribe the channel for more videos and shorts. Thank you and see you in the next video.